I'm not here to tell you to buy American Eagle jeans. And I definitely won't say that they're the most comfortable jeans I've ever worn. Or that they make your butt look amazing. Why would I need to do that? But if you said that you want to buy the jeans, I'm not going to stop you. But just so we're clear, this is not me telling you to buy American Eagle jeans.
Sydney Sweeney has very keen.
You see what I did there, right?
Welcome, everybody. This is the latest bit of nothing burger happening on the internet nowadays. And I'm sure, as you guys have all seen now, that this is the thing sweeping across the Twitter space and TikTok space, that there's something inherently wrong with this harmless ad in relation to Sydney Sweeney and American Eagle, and that this is some weird dog whistle eugenics commercial, when really it's just a hot girl in jeans using the double entendre of jeans, G-E-N-E, to J-E-A-N. And the thing about it, though, is she's not wrong. She's hot because of said jeans. And that's the thing. Most people enjoy hot people in all forms of media to sell a product. That is old as time. And that's the thing about this entire video. The male gaze is a fallacy. It has been a fallacy for almost 50 years. Let's get into it. Now, the term the male gaze was coined by a British film theorist named Laurel Mulvaney. Might be saying that slightly wrong. In a groundbreaking 1975 essay called Visual Pleasures in Narrative Media, which, consider the fact that she was also classified as a classic feminist and Marxist at the time, she argued that Hollywood cinema was structured in a way to reflect and reinforce a heterosexual male point of view. Women, as she suggested, were not positioned in a way to be active agents of the narrative, but rather as objects for visual pleasures, to be looked at the camera and the characters, and by extension, the audience. Her work drew from Freudian psychoanalytics, of the Lassian theory, which I will show you what that means, both of which identify desire and fantasy is shaped through media. She believed cinema wasn't just a storytelling machine, it was a system to reproduce the cultural ideologies about gender and power. According to her, the way women were framed in films, often through lingering shots, fragmented body close-ups, and voyeuristic angles, reflected a deeper societal ingrained notion that women exist to be observed and evaluated, but not to act as though they could influence the outcomes of these events. Now, with a history lesson aside, you gotta think about the time period which we're working with. 1975, and she had been in the film industry for a little bit during the time of Marilyn Monroe, who is regarded as one of the most sexy women alive in American history, at least. To that to say, yes, at the time being, the cinema and most TV studios do focus on having women be at the forefront to draw in the audience, because at the time, primarily speaking, men were watching these shows and movies. There's a host of other historical factors to play into that, but when it comes down to it, yes, they were trying to bring in the male audience to watch these movies because they were the ones spending their money. That's not the sake of just male gaze. That's what I believe is called consumerism. Let's go over what consumerism is. Consumerism is an economic and social system that encourages the consumption of goods and services as a means of attaining well-being, meaning that they are going to market or advertise something with the idea that this will better your quality of life. And when it comes to selling fashion or any kind of object that we use on a regular basis or to enhance our perception of ourselves, you would want to see someone you would aspire to be like, wielding, using, etc. product. And seeing hot women in clothes makes women think that they can also look hot in said clothes. That is the entire premise of the idea of consumerism with all kinds of products. That's the entire point of selling sex. Sex sells is the idea that you can move anything with men with the idea of appealing to the idea of getting sex. That is why the phrase exists. Now, on top of that, let's look at Henry Ford, who was asked why he invented the cars, what she instead, and he said, if I had asked people what they wanted instead, they would have said faster horses. This is because of the idea of trying to sell something to people who don't necessarily need something. You have to make it enticing. You have to make it desirable. Because inherently, if you have enough clothes, you don't need to buy more clothes. If you have a car, you don't need to buy a new car. If you have XYZ object, XYZ thing in your house, you don't need to buy more of it. We don't need to be incentivized to buy groceries because we always need food. We don't need incentivized to buy batteries or any kind of consumable item that goes away because we all use it. A charger, for example. We don't need incentives to buy a charger. But when it comes to selling ideas, products that are tangibly not needed. You do need to make it enticing. You do need to make it desirable. And when it comes to clothes, women happen to be one of those things. When women are sold clothes with other women, like that's the thing. Most of the time, these advertisements are selling the idea to women. They're selling the idea of, hey, you want to look like this woman, you might want to get these products. And this is where critiques that overemphasizes gender alone miss the big picture. Yes, many depictions of women in media can be problematic, but the root cause is not gender bias, it is a system of human attention that has become a commodity. Women are objectified not because they are purely women, because every human desire, sex, power, beauty, etc. has now become a subject of commercialization. Laura Mulvaney's male gaze theory was grounded in the psychoanalytic and Marxist ideas of the time, but what we see today is not persisted through said male gaze, it is an evolution into a monetized gaze, a gaze that tracks eye movement, click patterns, engagement metrics. Just like Henry Ford didn't sell cars because people asked for them, media companies don't exist to simply show you characters that aren't attractive. They exist because they know it works. They know as long as there are people who aspire to be like, that more people want to buy things that can emulate that. Nowhere in the debate of the male gaze is that more emphasized in terms of video games. Unlike film and television, gaming is interactive, which means the player is not just watching a character, but actively controlling. This makes questions about character design, sexuality, representation also charged. And yet, when we look at how and why certain characters are designed the way they are, a pattern emerges that points to less patriarchal conspiracy and more consumers targeting market demographics. Take the Dead or Alive franchise, developed by Team Ninja. And while the series has 3D fighting games as part of the forefront, it is far better known for the hyper-sexualized female roster of Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball, which has exaggerated breast physics, revealing costumes, provocative animations. Critics can go on and on about how this is the, quote, pinnacle of male gaze in gaming. However, the design itself did do what it was supposed to do. It made it very popular. It is a cultural zeitgeist in the gaming community when it comes to the fighting game community. While Team Ninja did not really go out the idea of making this, they knew what would work, what would sell, and that's why the Dead or Alive franchise, which hasn't had a game, like mainline game, in years, has still been fondly remembered through most gaming cultures and zeitgeists, because at the end of the day, we want these characters. They're memorable. There's also cases of like Mai Shiranui from Fatal Fury, aka King of Fighters. She is known for her revealing outfit, her bouncing physics, the flirtatious voice lines in her newest version of Street Fighter 6. She endured decades of being basically second to Chun-Li, purely from the idea of her design. She offered visual dynamicism and fan service, which made her not only a cosplay magnet, but a merchandising powerhouse in a world where visibility equals viability when it comes to video games. And while gaming also catches the brunt of the criticism in regards to male gaze, the phenomenon is not only prevalent there, but also used in Hollywood cinema and kind of returned to form. But the most classic example from the early 2000s would be Megan Fox. Megan Fox's appearance in the 2007 Transformers blockbuster movie is an iconic scene of her stretched out over the Camaro. And it is such a well-documented scene because of how much she became a sexual figure. And if you think about it, it wasn't from the idea of we want to objectify women. It was from how do I market this movie to teenage boys and adult men about giant fighting alien robots. It was about economics. She wasn't just cast for some narrative weight, she was cast to attract attention. Like, there's definitely some times where male and female actors are brought into a movie purely for their looks. Let's not forget the Henry Cavill, Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Gosling, Brad Pitt, the list can go on of male actors who were brought in to bring in women. But the thing is about this is that it's all about the same thing no matter the gender. Marketability. The audience didn't even need to know the name of her character. The goal was to create an image so provocative and memorable that it would generate buzz, screen caps, interviews, and a little bit of cultural conversation. And it worked. That single shot was replayed, parodied, and memed endlessly. And Megan Fox wasn't just part of the film, she became the marketing vehicle for the franchise for a long time. And in context of the male gaze, the criticism holds that the camera reduced her to an object for visual pleasure. But with the context of consumerism, that objectification became more tactical. It was less about patriarchy and more about product's placement, with Fox herself becoming part of the product. She was used to help sell the film and then later sell magazines, brand endorsement, future movies. Her sexuality was commodified, not because of the producers hate women, but because, like I said, sex sells. In this case, her image sold incredibly well. And what's especially more telling is how the objectification didn't result in long-term empowerment for Fox. Despite her commercial success, she still struggled with the industry's unwilling to see her anything beyond her looks. In later interviews, she revealed how uncomfortable and disempowered she felt on set, acknowledging that she was being used as a visual tool. However, her attempts to call this out were often dismissed or ignored much later when public sentiment had shifted more to critical views of Hollywood exploitation. This illustrates an important dynamic. Even when individuals recognize the problem, the machine keeps running. And this approach isn't limited to Megan Fox. Hollywood has a long history of turning actresses into visual commodities, from, again, Marilyn Monroe, as stated, Margot Robbie in The Wolf on Wall Street. The list can literally go on. Black Widow when it comes to Avengers. The format is always the same. Create a breakout moment of hypervisibility, saturate the market with their image, and monetize the reaction. The camera doesn't gaze innocent. It calculates. At every angle, every costume choice, every lighting setup is designed to stimulate desire, and therefore generate buzz. It's not a subconscious bias, but a deliberate marketing. And that's the irony of the critics when it comes to the male gaze, is that the real issue tends to lie upstream in terms of directors, producers, studio marketers, advertising companies, marketing companies. The list goes on. When Megan Fox's cast transformed, she wasn't chosen because she was unappreciated rise and coming acting talent. She was chosen for her looks, to move tickets and toys, etc. And in doing so, she became an emblem of the series and therefore an emblem of the industry when it comes to how to turn attention into dollars. This also explains why the male gaze is not just a male thing anymore. Today's plenty of visual media cater to female gaze as well. When it comes to objectified male bodies, romanticized archetypes, the smut community. It's not a gender conspiracy, it's just a business model. The media reflects whatever data says is profitable. That's why you see shirtless Chris Hemsworth and slow motion shots of Timothy Chalamet's cheekbones, or other romantic tropes and dramas that are aimed at women. Everyone is a commodity when the goal is about monetizing desire. Ultimately, Megan Fox's story is a cautionary tale, but not about sexism. It's about how capitalism shapes representation. If a character or actor captures attention, they become a vehicle for economic gain. That is literally what is happening with Sydney Sweeney. Sydney Sweeney is this generation's version of Megan Fox. Whether that's sexualization, or heroism, or vulnerability, or power, it doesn't care. The gaze is not inherently oppressive. It is opportunistic. It's find a way that works and uses it for its gain. And for those who caught in the frame, the difference between empowerment and exploitation is often who comes down to who's cashing the checks. Sydney Sweeney has made a conscious decision since her breakout role in Euphoria to embrace this. She enjoys the idea of the male gaze, quote unquote. She enjoys being sought after by millions, and that's what's, leading to her career. And if she has no problem with it, why do you? In reality, what we see across entertainment industries is less the result of coordinated patriarchy and more the outcome of predictive analytics, audience metrics, and risk-averse capitalism. Studios, developers, publishers don't ask themselves, how do we reinforce gender roles today? They ask, what has worked before? What's trending now? What gives us the best return of investment with the least amount of risk? The gaze is not necessarily male, it's just algorithmic. The characters that we can think about from video games, like 2B from Nier, E from Stellar Blade, as I said earlier, Maya Shiranuri, Lara Croft, the list goes on. They don't persist because of cultural oppression. They persist because they're recognizable, shareable, cosplayable, sellable. Their designs are built to catch the eye in a 3-second social media scroll. The way our level of attention to detail has gone down over the years, thanks to apps like TikTok and, of course, Twitter, we don't really care to find the substance in things. We want to see things that catch our eye, catch our brains, catch whatever brain you're thinking of. Their costumes are cosplay staples, merchandise fodder, fan art gold mines, and if anything, their success has less to do with their gender and more to the economic utility of making a recognizable character. The truth is, every demographic has a gaze now. Male, female, queer, young, old. Content is tailored to tap into each segment's desire, fantasy, or aesthetic preferences. What people call the male gaze is just one of the strands of a much larger web of targeted visual strategies. These strategies are informed not by ideology, but by data-driven insight. If the data suggests people will respond to certain looks, then designers, directors, marketers will double down on them. That's why both hypersexualization and fully clothed female characters can exist side by side. You have Bayonetta and you have Aloy. You have Eve and you have Ellie. Each character serves a different purpose in their gaming markets, and the same industry that produces scantily clad fighting game characters can also greenlit deeply written female leads with narrative-driven indie games that don't have to shed any skin. Industry doesn't prefer a particular type of woman, they prefer whatever gets them the most money. The moment we assume every revealing costume is an act of patriarchal domination, we miss the forest through the trees. And arguably what's more unsettling, we ignore the truth. These images exist because they work. They move units, they sell ads, they grab eyeballs. And this effectiveness is measured not by imagination, but by literal numbers. We can see the stock of American Eagle and how it jumped since this ad has dropped. The male gaze doesn't survive because it's ideologically dominant. It survives because it's economically efficient. It doesn't mean we couldn't critique harmful tropes or pushes for better representation. What we absolutely should do is understand there's a difference between having a conversation and having a moral panic, when it's really just a numbers game. If we want different characters, we have to support different products. If we want developers and filmmakers to take risks, we need to show up for the more out there things. Culture doesn't change from hashtags alone, it changes through purchasing power. We are a capitalist society. You want to make a statement, spend your money. In light of this, the male gaze is less a relic of a quote outdated sexism and more of a tool of modern capitalism. It is not about power over women, it's about power over attention. And in this economy of clicks, trends, TikTok, we want things that are guaranteed to work because no one has the attention span anymore. After decades of dissecting pop culture when it comes to Laurel's original works, in comparison to now with Sydney Sweeney, there is one single through line that has stood the test of time. Money. The most powerful gaze in the media today isn't male, isn't female, isn't queer, isn't straight. It is the gaze of the market, and the only thing that it sees is green. Today's most sexualized images aren't created because someone wants to dominate women or dominate men. They are created because they know what sells better than alternatives. The media industry doesn't run on ideology, it runs on metrics, algorithms, and monetization because they are businesses. This is capitalism. This doesn't make images harmless, of course. There is sometimes sexualization, objectivation that can be bad, especially toward young people. When you think about gender, beauty, identity, value, etc. But understanding the root cause of helps us better frame the solution. We're not fighting at the secret society of men in suits that are trying to control women. We're dealing with the feedback loop of when it happens with consumer behavior meets content production. We click on an image because it gets us more of that image. And that image increasingly is tailored not to just men, but to everybody. The male gaze has transformed into a multi-gender gaze, guided through click rates, watch times, and what gets the most retweets. The same system that created Stellar Blades Eve, gave us shirtless Henry Cavill in The Witcher, gave us choreographed BTS fan cams. Everyone's desirability is a product. Everyone can be a product. Everyone can be framed. So what's the takeaway from this? It's not to shut down critique or silence feminism analysis on things. It's quite the opposite. But if we limit our language to simply men bad, male gaze bad, we risk mislabeling a much broader phenomenon. And what we're really critiquing isn't masculinity or even patriarchal societies, it's market strategies. And in the media world where every click counts, every visual design has been optimized, and the gaze is no longer about dominance, but about conversion rates, we can really have a discussion here. The true currency of the attention economy is not beauty or talent, it's visibility. Whoever captures the most attention before becoming valuable, thus sparking two new movements. That's why studios fight over these hot actors like Sydney Sweeney. That's why game developers tend to lead into thirst trap characters like Marvel Rivals. Why TikTok filters stimulate ideal faces and bodies. It's not about patriarchy. It's about what's performing best about the algorithms. The system rewards what converts. Whatever makes money keeps making money. That's how it works. This should not change how we respond when it comes to consumers and creators. If we want deeper characters, deeper actors, less objectification, less caricatures, then we have to invest what we want to see more of. Visibility doesn't just happen, it's paid for. And in time, money, likes, and shares. If we demand change while still rewarding the same visual tactics, we become the co-authors in the very gaze that you're prescribing to being bad. In the end, the gaze doesn't belong to one group anymore. It is crowdsourced, digitized, and datafied. The male gaze may have started with a cultural critique, but today it is a product design blueprint, one that is used across industries to not oppress, but to sell. As long as beauty, sexuality, fantasy drive clicks and conversions, the gaze, whatever you want to call it, will be watching back. And because of that system, it's not about who's looking, it's about who's buying. Now, can we please stop bullying people online for simply having preferences? Understand that things exist for you too. GG's, guys.